Good morning and welcome to Clyde's webinar series. I'm your host, Mike Calabrese. Today's episode is entitled Warranties and E-Commerce Counterweight. And for those of you who are familiar with our work over at the podcast, Walking the Roadmap, you know that I don't like to do any of these warranty discussions on my own. And we're fortunate to bring in a real expert in the field, Ben Reyes. He is Clyde's Director of Program Management. He is also a warranty veteran, having spent the better part of the last 10 years living and breathing warranties. And there's no better explanation of that than today being a day off for him. He wanted to come back and join us here. You're on Mountain Time, I believe, out there in Colorado. So I appreciate you making time for us and our audience. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm excited to be here, and glad to have you ask me to spend some time with you.
So we have 30 minutes to get into this subject, and it's a rich subject. There's been a lot in the last 10 years that has happened within the warranty space. There's been both a migration and a maturation of warranties from the brick and mortar, outreach tool that was utilized by in-person sales, by OEMs sending physical mail. And it was a way to be able to drive revenue and to drive loyalty. But as it's migrated to the digital space, there's been great innovations, there's been great progress. And when you put that with the backdrop of what's happening now to e-commerce companies dealing with inflation, supply chain Armageddon, and other issues related to worker shortages, just the cost of doing business has gone up and up. And really that's put under the microscope any and every tactic to be able to drive revenue and to lower costs, particularly customer acquisition costs. So first, Ben, I'd like to kind of throw this out to you. In your experience, having spent time with Square Trade before Clyde, and now in the last 8 years, having really been laser focused on warranties, how much has changed within the industry?
Yeah, listen, I think it's a great question, and I think that we went from a model where folks were traditionally buying warranties, what we kind of one-to-one. So I'm buying a product and I'm buying some kind of extended protection plan on that. Typically, that interaction was happening in a retail setting with a salesperson. Sometimes that's happening at the register, but again, typically it's an assisted sale. There's a lot there to leverage value. There's a lot there to be able to help, show the customer why this is beneficial to them. When we've transitioned to this digital world, it's something that is significantly harder to communicate to your customer base. Because again, you don't have somebody there standing there one-to-one having that conversation. People's purchasing habits are different. They're buying more online than they are buying in retail locations. They're able to access competitive information a lot easier, comparing purchasing from, say, an OEM to purchasing from a different storefront. And so as people have changed their kind of mindset about how they're purchasing and how they're looking at that information, we've had to adapt and grow how we're presenting warranty to them, how we're extending that protection. And not only what that looks like from an initial offer, but what the construct of that program looks like. People are looking for additional benefits. They're looking for programs that fit more with, again, the purchasing habits of their customers. So yeah, we really have had to grow a lot because, again, if you look at how consumer spending habits are today compared to 10 years ago, they're very different.
That last point that you bring up, the consumer, tactics, their trends, everything that is tracked in that way. How much would you say that's integrated into warranty offerings, the way that companies go about, reaching out to these customers, when and where they offer them, and the tactics that within the backdrop of things changing from a data perspective as well. I'll add on that layer. I'm sure a lot of our audience members are aware, but the data collection as it relates to the new iOS from Apple, new regulations in regards to cookies and to how you track people online, it's getting more and more difficult to create those lines of connection. In your opinion, does that make warranty even more valuable? And if so, how do you alter those tactics to make sure that you're building those lines of connection?
Yeah, I think absolutely, especially for an OEM, right? So if I'm an OEM and I'm looking at all of the concerns that exist with my business today, again, whether it's labor shortages, whether it's supply chain issues, that customer acquisition cost, all of these things warranty can have a play in. To your point, if we just start with who is my customer, right? This is a very generic question that we're always trying to answer in the retail space. As an OEM, I'm always trying to understand who is purchasing my product. If I go to a third-party website and I purchase that product, I don't, as an OEM, I don't necessarily get a lot of customer information there. I don't see who that customer is. I don't see their purchasing habits. But the new school approach, what we're doing here at Clyde is, how do we leverage a warranty conversation into pulling that customer information back to you? And so, like, one of the great things we're doing today is we're using product registration. And so we've put really creative merchandising in a box that shows up at a customer's home. Doesn't matter where they're buying that product, they're still going to get this great communication from us of, hey, come register your product, find out how to protect it, and make sure that you're protecting that value. So just in terms of, hey, can we go pull back that customer information? Can we find more about who's purchasing our product? We've been able to leverage warranty here at Clyde to really navigate that conversation. And I think the next step of that is, how do we make sure we're adapting that purchasing process? Today, we're working, today we have really established what we call a one-to-one. Again, I go register that product, I buy a warranty for my product, or I buy that product up front and purchase a warranty. We're looking at other ways we can do this. How do we work this into a monthly program, whereas that person pays for maybe a connected fitness subscription, where they're seeing those videos provided, they're seeing these benefits provided from an OEM. How do we look at incorporating ourselves into that program? How do we make it more seamless for the customer to feel like they're getting all of the value out of their product? So really kind of two things I think there to answer your questions. One, let's get your customer data back. Let's show you who your customers are, help you identify them, and be able to reach out to them. And two, let's make sure that our products are being sold to them in the way that they're looking to purchase and interact with these OEMs today.
One exciting piece of information I wanted to share with our audience. Last year, Clyde conducted kind of a beta test program in which we were trying to find out the exact benefit of bundling together warranty offerings with buy now, pay later. And I think it makes sense that we saw really strong results from customers who were offered them both in tandem. And a part of this, I think, goes to cutting down the educational component and the time that's required to understand why there's value in thinking about your purchase, not just as a one-off, I give you, the money, you give me the product, and that's the end of it. As buy now, pay later has brought people off the sideline who previously may not have been able to afford certain products, or just wanted the flexibility of being able to pay over time. In a similar way, when it comes to warranties, I think on the consumer side, it's expanding their understanding of what it's like to interact with the brand. So I'm protected for multiple years. I may get access to the next line in this product at a discount, or there may be some loyalty offerings layered in. Do you think that buy now, pay later and other technologies have kind of cut down on this educational component, and for brands really explaining why, it makes sense from a financial perspective to go ahead and to throw on a warranty for a blender or a toaster or something that you're buying for your home that maybe generationally, even 10 years ago, people didn't necessarily see as something valuable to them?
Yeah, I think the one thing you hit at the beginning is things like buy now, pay later have given purchasers more spending power. They've given your consumers more spending power. But what we need to do as an industry, what is responsible for us, is protecting that purchasing power, right? So we're giving folks the ability to make an investment in a product. If we use connected fitness as an example, because it's a very popular space right now, we're giving people access to this to make healthier lifestyles for themselves and their family. We're getting them in and making a purchase, and they don't necessarily see that as a monthly payment for that connected fitness, for that rower, for that fitness bike. They're seeing that payment as an interaction with that rower company. They're seeing that as an interaction with, with that bike company. And the thing about it is that I need that bike to keep working to be able to get the full benefit of the monthly program. And so for me, if I've made the investment and I've got those payments over time as a consumer, I want to protect the value of that. And then as a consumer, or as a merchant rather, I know that if I want to have the ability to collect that monthly recurring revenue and keep them in my environment, I need their bike to be working. I need it to be functioning for them. And so I think the first thing we can do is, how do we look at being able to source parts to them? How do we look at being able to replace things that are maybe breaking down for normal wear and tear issues as opposed to mechanical issues covered under limited warranty? We can provide more benefits just to keep that product up and running. And then again, I think your second point there is, how do we maximize? What is the development of that into the next benefit? And so then we start thinking of, maybe we give them an annual accessory discount. again, if I'm going and I'm buying and I'm getting an accessory and a new pair of shoes to use on my exercise bike every year, again, that ties me into your program. That makes me more loyal to your brand. It gives me this customer satisfaction of I've made a good purchase. You're standing behind your purchase. I know it's going to work for me as long as I continue to, to be a part of this ecosystem. And at the same time, there's other tangible benefits to me that can be had. Again, it can be accessories, it can be tech support, it can be additional, additional learning resources. We've had conversations with companies in spaces that are, they're looking for what's the next step for us. How can we, maybe in the cooking space, you gave an example of a blender. How do we digitize our assortment of recipes? How do we make this more consumable to our customers? And these are all things that we can play a part to. And again, if we bring that all back to how do I make sure that customer stays in my ecosystem, again, from a customer perspective, I've bought a great product. You're standing behind my product. There's additional benefits to me from being inside of your marketplace. When it is time for that upgrade to 2.0 version of this exercise bike or this blender or the 3.0 version, I'm not even considering going somewhere else. I'm not even considering doing market research and looking at your competition because you've done such a good job as a brand of standing behind me for all these years. Again, that's what loyalty is. And there are companies out there today that are doing a great job of that brand loyalty.
You brought up repairs, and this is a topic that I'm interested to hear your perspective on. Given the supply chain issues that have, persisted throughout the pandemic, and even now throughout 2022, a lot of industry analysts believe that it wasn't just isolated to the pandemic or the holiday push, that this is something that had a domino effect on the supply chain, both domestically and internationally. You add on to that the geopolitical tensions, worldwide right now that are impacting potentially gas prices, fuel, components like raw materials to actually make these products. How much of that do you think filters down to the idea of we can't just say to a customer, you'll get a brand new product and it'll be there in a few days? That was the old way of thinking, let's say 2019, early 2020, where now you're looking at it and saying, how can we get a replacement or repair instead of a replacement or repair in the hands of our customers, and using that as a differentiator to say, we care about the time horizon on this, resolution for you. You brought up before the webinar that you just had an interaction with Apple, and they basically said to you, can we get you new AirPods in 2 weeks? This is something I use every day. So every single day that I don't have it is lost value. Do you think that's changed within the warranty space, even how merchants are talking about these things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you cannot be a responsible global citizen. Like, let's take all of the supply chain things out of it. I think that in general, a lot of companies today are looking at being a responsible global citizen and not taking that product and just throwing it away, not putting it into a dump bin somewhere. And so part of it starts with let's be responsible as global citizens to put forth a product that we can repair and we can keep lasting for a long time. And then we add on the supply chain. And we look at, it's hard enough in many cases to get one part, let alone parts for complete units. A lot of these OEMs have delays on getting complete units out, even at that initial time of purchase. And so if you then want to replace with an entire unit, you can talk about 2 or 3 month delays. And again, when you have an environment where that customer is, potentially paying you a monthly subscription, maybe they're in a rewards program with you, 2 or 3 months of not being able to use their product is incredibly detrimental to the brand. And so we saw a huge shift. We saw people shift to repair. We see this a lot in the appliance space. We send somebody out to your house. With things like cell phones and tablets, we can do local repair where we can send you into a repair location and have it repaired on site. And the thing that I'm really excited about, because I do think there's a next evolution of this, is we're also looking at how do we do what I would call digitally assisted repair. And so that is where we would send a part to your house, and we would set up an appointment with you with a technical expert. It's a video call. It's all done digitally because, again, there's a cost of gas. There's a cost of labor. There's the cost of time. And so if I can schedule my repair technicians, my experts, every 30 minutes back to back during a day, a full line of calls to help my customers to get them back up and running, that's a more effective way for me to be doing repair. So I ship the part directly to the consumer's home. I schedule them a Google Meets meeting, a Microsoft Teams meeting, right? I set up this interaction with them. I walk them through hand in hand how to do this repair, and my customers back up and running quicker. it costs me less as a brand. My NPS, my consumer satisfaction is going to be higher. And so not only have we shifted away from replacements, we're really optimizing repair at this point. How great can we make this experience? How much time can we prevent this experience from taking? Because again, the idea here, keep them in your customer lifecycle, keep your customer happy and using your product, their loyalty for you is going to be sky high.
This next subject, I wanted to bring up this slide, and if you could kind of talk us through this, but this idea of buy now, pay later brought customers who previously were not in the market for financial reasons for purchasing certain products. They brought them off the sidelines, and now they're available to merchants. In a similar way, when customers go the third-party route, when they go to a Lowe's, when they go to a Best Buy, when they purchase through Amazon, in a lot of cases, you're losing visibility on those customers. That's just in your blind spot. So in a different way, you're bringing customers, off the sideline into your, universe in terms of outreach, if you can get them to register. Could you talk a little bit about the value of registration and how Clyde's looking to play a part in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, typically, if I'm a consumer and I'm out looking to purchase something, I've got two options. I can go to the OEM or I can go third party to buy. And again, when I buy with this third party retailer, that retailer is not necessarily passing, and in fact, most cases is not passing me any customer information. I don't know who they are. I don't know what else they're buying. I don't really know if they're in my ecosystem in some other way. And so historically, brands, OEMs, have looked for product registration as a way to gather that customer insight. And so we've seen, the old school way is this mail-in card with the squares on it where you put in you fill it out. And then the new school way was, hey, go to a website or call us, let's register, let's capture this customer information. And so that's how you bring somebody from the bottom half of this back up to the top. You can bring them up to this purple section here where you see registration. What we've done is we've really taken a look at how do we increase the registration? How do we make a customer more likely to register their product? And so we offer something with registration. Again, in some cases, just the ability to purchase an extended protection plan or extended warranty is enough of a consideration factor for that customer to register versus not registering. Right? In some cases, we can also find other ancillary benefits to give them. Maybe we can give them access to a premium program that a merchant has. But what we do is we take that customer from living on the bottom half of this chart where there's a lot of gray lines and a lot of no information, and we move them up into the top half of this. And we move them up to where you understand what that customer is looking for from you. You understand how they feel about your product, how they're interacting with it. And then we can continue to modify and provide the best protection program for them. And we can make sure that, again, if that's a monthly program, if it's an annual program, if it's a traditional one-to-one program, that the benefits align with what your company and your customers are looking for.
Reminder to our audience, you can submit questions through the chat functionality here on Zoom. We actually had a few writing questions, Ben, if you'd be willing to field a few here.
Yep.
Our first is from Melanie, and she'd like to know, as a company, they're currently running their own warranty program. She'd like to know some of the finer points about Clyde. How static is the offering, in her words, and how much is Clyde involved after launch to fine tune it?
Yeah, I think this is a really great question. And historically, this has been like one of the issues in the industry is once we do the setup work, how do we make sure it still works? How do we make sure that as a merchant, you can continue to add products and they continue to be matched, that they're attached to the right price points? We want to make sure that if you're going to run a sale or a special, that may change the price of our offering. And so, the thing that I love about Clyde is we use a lot of technology to make sure that it doesn't end at the moment we click the launch button. It's not good enough to bring you up and have a program and have it up and running. We want to optimize that program and make sure that it's effective. And so there is no static at Clyde. There's no set it and forget it and hope for the best. We're going to monitor those interactions with your customers. We're going to monitor the style of prompt, the style of offer we have, the words and verbiage that we use in that offer to make sure that we can modify and constantly increase. And what we've seen, we have actual proof cases. Our success team has done a phenomenal job of looking at our current accounts and taking them from 10 or 15% attach rate to 25 and 30% attach rates just by looking at, again, how are we offering? When are we offering? Does our price point make sense with your product? So nothing about what Clyde does is static post-launch. We use a lot of technology to make sure that we're, again, reaching your customers and maximizing the results for you.
We have a question from Yusuf. they would like to know at the the beginning of the process when you're replacing or refunding claimed products, how do you go about building that policy? What gets repaired, what gets replaced, and how does that actual beginning to end process look on the back end?
Yeah, so I mean, it really starts before we're live with a merchant. We work in collaboration with our merchants to build programs for them that provide the value to their customers. So sometimes those programs are fairly standard, where we cover things like normal wear and tear and power surge and accidental damage. And in some cases, we can get into adding really cool features. Again, we then go and work with our underwriting partners to make sure that those features are, compliant, that we can offer them the right way, that they're supported with all the regulatory things that we go through in our industry, and then we work to get that program live. So it really starts collaboratively well before launch. Again, something I think our sales team does very well in the discovery process is really understanding as a merchant what you're looking for and how we can build that program for you.
Our next question comes from Mark, and Mark would like to know, how is Clyde integrated within my checkout process? And once again, he's pointing at the idea of, is it cookie cutter, or is it something that you'll consult with him individually to try to perfect it in terms of his checkout, his website, his online experience, whether it's on mobile or on desktop?
Yeah, I keep talking about the great teams we have at Clyde. I feel like I'm a broken record. We have a great solution and implementation team too. And I think that I think they do a really good job of making sure that what we do is anything but cookie cutter. In fact, I would say more often than not, we're not using what we would term an out of the box experience, because your specific shopping site, your front end looks different, and we do want it to communicate the same way that you communicate with your customers. Merchants have very curated brands that they're very protective of how they look and how they feel, and so it wouldn't make sense for us as a company to come in and demand that it looks one way or the other. There are some things that we're required to have on there, but in terms of the look and the feel and the placement, these are conversations that we have every day between our implementations folks and our merchants. And again, just to kind of reiterate my point from before, those conversations don't stop at the launch of the program. We continue those conversations with our success team post-launch to make sure that the ideas or the assumptions we had at day one may not be correct 6 months in, and we can modify and continue to build and grow as a partnership, because that's what we want to be.
Ben, I'm going to ask you a question that does not require you to put on your Clyde hat, but as an individual consumer, and this is something that I've asked John Kaplan, a member of our board. He is one of the top leaders at Alibaba, so he has a lot of insight, but he's also a consumer himself. And he used to say that if an online, e-commerce store did not offer Apple Pay, he's like, I'm not going to go to find my wallet wherever it is in my apartment and then look at the credit card and type, I'm just not going to do it. So for him, that was enough for him to get off the ride, so to speak. When it comes to integrations like Clyde, when it comes to buy now, pay laters, free shipping, all these other little add-ons and plugins that get added into a checkout experience, is there any that you would list off that are absolute must-haves for you on a personal level? And if they don't have that, you end up taking your business elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the two big ones are buy now, pay later, and some type of warranty protection program. I have, again, as a consumer, I've got 3 kids at home. So in a family of 5, I'm very conscious of how we spend our money, what we're spending our money on, how long our money is lasting. I don't want to buy my 7-year-old an iPad. Use the Apple Care example. I don't want to buy my 7-year-old an iPad and give it to her and not have any protection on that, because I don't want to feel like if something happens, which is not her fault, that I should be mad or I should be frustrated. I want to feel like it's okay. I can go get this taken care of and I can get this fixed, and my daughter can still use this, very important tool for her. In the case of an iPad, it's a lot of learning, it's a lot of education. And so for me personally, I want to make sure that my money is going as far as possible. And there's, again, 2 ways to do that. I think buy now, pay later has really shifted people's purchasing habits. And so having some kind of ability to break those payments up, whether it's buy in for or longer version. And then again, protect my investment. I'm making an investment and my money is not going as far as today as it did a year ago or 2 years ago. I want to make sure I stretch every value and every penny out of those dollars. And so offer me a protection plan, offer me something meaningful, because that drives my loyalty to you as a brand.
Last year, we put together a white paper on the topic of touch points. It was the touch point Trojan horse for the title. And it got into this idea of we're living in a post email society where most people view their email as just an opportunity for brands and people outside of their sphere of influence to convince them to buy something or interact in a certain way. So I think the average American has put up kind of a barrier in that regard. Whereas transactional emails, your package has shipped, here's the tracking info, milestone emails where it's like, you've been had a year of membership, or your membership is coming up, or something is about to expire. The open rate and click-through rate are so much higher on those. How does a warranty program allow you to access really the eyeballs and the attention of customers, whether they're prospects or customers that are within your, quote unquote universe, to be able to drive that lifetime value and to have them become, second and third time buyers?
Yeah, I mean, add value, right? Make what the email has. You've got in your example, I think it's perfect. You've got a 4 or 5 word window to get them clicking, right? You've got this subject line to get them to click in. And so historically in our industry, we've always been worried about how do we show that there's value, because there is value. Like, we wouldn't exist as an industry if there wasn't. And so I think that for us, it's like we have done a really good job of finding value in that subject line, finding value in the content, right? Because you've got to do 2 things. You've got to get them to click, and then you've got to get them to engage on the content in the email. And so we've done a really good job of making sure that the content is meaningful and it looks more like a transactional email. It looks like something to get excited about. And I think the other option, or the other piece of that, and we talked about this earlier, is let's add other benefit. Hey, you've had your mattress for a year. We also sell sheets and bedding. Congratulations on your 1-year anniversary of owning this bed. Here's 30% off new sheets. And this is something that as a consumer, I should be spending money on, right? And so I look at that and I go, oh, there's a deal. This is a coupon. I was thinking my sheets didn't look very good. And so, we can also use other benefits to pull them in as well, but make it valuable.
We have time for about 2 more questions. This next one comes from Sean, and it's a great question. The data that's generated through registration and claims, where is that stored and how is that shared with a retailer? And I know our CEO, Brandon, likes to talk about data syncing and not sharing, so it's a 2-way street and you can make decisions in real time. But how does that actually play out?
Yeah. So, I mean, the nice thing for an OEM is that when we collect claims failures, right? So as your customers file claims, we collect exactly what those claims are. So our claims operations team, they collect all of this data, they house all of this data in Clyde systems, and so we can access this. Our success team can access this, and they can provide that insight of like, hey, maybe it's one specific part that is failing continually and it's doing it at 18 months. We can provide that feedback that ends up being additional R&D insight that your company doesn't have to put money into. So as those claims are collected, as those claims are filed, rather, we collect all of the failure information, and then we can kind of aggregate that and provide that to the merchants.
I try to warn you, Ben, the time goes really fast when you're talking warranties, when you're having fun on a Friday morning. So
it's the most fun.
We have reached the ends of the road here, but that doesn't mean that we are not happy to answer more of your questions. If you didn't get one in or get one answered here in our half-hour discussion, feel free to reach out to either Ben or myself. That's Ben@joinclyde.com, Michael@joinclyde.com. For Ben Reyes, I'm Mike Calabrese. This has been the Clyde Webinar Series. Thank you so much for joining us.